Start.
Good morning. Myself, Dr. Working in Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science, SNS College of Technology. So today I'm going to talk about conflict of interest. Conflict of interest occurs when an individual or an organization faces a situation where personal interest, relationship, or obligations may interfere with professional responsibility, ethical standards, or decision making. How does this matter? Because conflict of interest can undermine trust, fairness, and integrity in almost every domain: business, law, medicine, politics, research, and even day-to-day life. In this section, we are going to explore what exactly is meant by conflict of interest, what are the different types of conflict of interest, the real-world examples and case studies, the consequences of unmatched conflict, strategies for identifying, disclosing, and mitigating them, the importance of ethics and transparency in preventing conflict of interest. Now I call upon students of final year to talk about this topic. Thank you.
Understanding conflict of interest. Let us begin with a simple definition. A conflict of interest arises when a person or entity has competing interests or loyalties. These competing interests can make it difficult to act in a way that impartial, objective, and aligned with the ethical or professional duties. For example, a doctor who owns share paramedical company might be tempted to prescribe the company's drugs, even if they are not in the best option of the patient. The government officials who awarded the contracts of a construction company run by their relative faces a conflict between public duty and personal loyalty. A researcher who receives funding from an industry group might feel pressured to produce results that favor the funder. In all these situations, the conflict is not only about the actual decision but also about the perception. Even the appearance of a conflict of interest can damage trust.
Conflicts of interest. Conflicts of interest can take many forms. Let us look at the major categories. Actual conflict of interest. This is when a person's judgment or actions are directly influenced by the private interest. Example, a judge ruling in a case where their own family member is involved. Perceived or apparent conflict of interest. Here, there may not be an actual conflict, but it appears that one exists, creating doubts and mistakes. Example, a professor grading the work of a student who happens to be their relative even if their grading is fair. Others may suspect bias. Potential conflict of interest. That arises when a situation has the capacity to develop into a conflict in the future. Example, an auditor who is being considered for a managerial role in the company they are currently auditing. Personal versus professional conflicts. Personal conflicts involve ties, family ties, friendships, or a romantic relationship. Professional conflicts involve financial interests, organizational affiliates, or consulting arrangements. Financial conflict of interest. One of the most common types where financial gain or loss influences judgment. Example, a politician owning stocks in the company while making policy decisions that affect their industry.
Real-world examples and case studies. The Enron scandal 2001, one of the largest corporate scandals in the history. Enron collapsed due to accounting fraud. A major conflict of interest existed between auditors Arthur and Anderson and Enron. The auditors were paid huge fees not only for auditing but also for consulting services, creating a situation where they had a little incentive to report irregularities. Medical conflict of interest. In medicine, conflict of interest are common when doctors accept gifts, sponsorships, or incentives from paramedical companies. These can subtly influence prescription habits, raising questions about whether the doctor is prioritizing patient health or corporate profits. Government and politics. Conflict of interest often may make headlines in politics. For instance, when policymakers have personal financial stakes in industries they regulate, even if no wrongdoing occurs, public trust is weakened. Academic research. When researchers receive funding from industry groups, there is often a concern that results may be biased. For example, studies funded by the tobacco industry in the past downplayed health risks of smoking, creating ethical breaches.
Managing and
preventing conflict of interest. The key is not the conflict of interest will never exist. They are something unavoidable. The important question is how to manage them responsibility. Identification. The step is recognition when conflict exists. Many organizations require self-disclosure from financial declaration or periodical adults. Disclosure. Being a transparent about potential conflict allows others to evaluate the situation. For example, research disclose funding sources in academic journal. Recursal. When conflict is significant to the individual should step aside from the decision making. A judge may recuse themselves from a case involving a family member. Policy and regulation. Organization must have clear codes of conduct, ethic policy and a complement measure to minimize risk. Education and awareness. Training program on ethics and compliance help individual recognition subtitle for the conflict and handle them correctly.